Hey everyone, Kate Nash here. We're going to talk about 5 common issues that we see in course creators. And these are not, scientifically surveyed or anything like that. This is just my observation and what I see in course creators that I work with all the time. So here's my countdown. So the number 5 issue that I see is technology challenges. And when I say technology challenges, sometimes it is not technology challenge as much as it is a technology fear or a technology excuse. Now, I'm sure none of you are guilty of technology excuses or any excuses at all, right? That isn't your way of going around, but that's other people. So here's what I see. It looks like people saying, I don't know what platform to choose. I don't know what tech I need to record. I don't know how to edit my videos. I don't know how to run a Facebook Live. I don't know how to set up Zoom. I don't know how to do a Facebook group. It's a lot of I don't know how followed by some tech. The truth is that they're making a course really about the tech. They're talking so much about the tech when really a course is not about the technology. It is about the connections that you make with people. The technology, yeah, you do have to use it, but there are some ways to get around it. If this is a fear for you or a challenge for you, here's what you need to be willing to do, or here's what things that can help. I think you need to be willing to do this. So I would ask, are you willing to practice your delivery and make the focus on the connection? That is so much more important. And are you willing to make mistakes? Now, this is hilarious because actually things go wrong for everybody. You could be great with technology or not so great with technology, and technology is still going to fail you either way. Technology doesn't behave better because you become better with it. I remember I was in a classroom. This is actually a classroom. So we're not even talking about a lot of technology other than a PowerPoint slides and somebody standing at the front of the classroom, and the power went out. And that means no lighting, no PowerPoint slides. And the teacher, she just kind of they had some windows, so they had a little light. So she just rolled through her entire presentation without the slides. And it's hard for us to continue to roll through something when we have a power failure, literally we can get booted off the internet, but other things can happen, like audio can drop and stuff like that. Your response to mistakes can make you seem incredibly fun to be around. So if something bad happens and you laugh it off and, smile and keep going, if you don't make it an issue, then it becomes a non-issue for the people around you as well. All right, that's a really long one, but be willing to make mistakes. Be willing to iterate and test. And when you're iterating and testing your course ideas, that means that you're actually working with less technology initially. You're not deciding on a course platform. You're going to go into a Zoom, or you're going to, and you can figure out Zoom. Zoom's not that hard, or you can get somebody to help you. You can go on Zoom, or you can go on a Facebook Live or something like that and present your content in test situations. This lets you see if that idea is going to work anyway and get feedback on it. So you don't have to decide on a course platform and record a video and do all the editing up front. If you're iterating, you're using minimal technology to begin. And then as you finalize your product, you have more advanced tech, and then you can hire somebody to help you. So it doesn't have to all depend on you. If you're interested, I have a video that's how to tell if a course will work. And that describes a lot about how to test and iterate. I totally recommend that you check it out. And the other thing is to use what you have. Yes, you can get fancy cameras and fancy lights and fancy this and fancy that. But really, when people are wanting to enroll in your course, what they really want is not technology. They're not looking for really beautiful videos. I mean, if you see the videos that are popular on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook, some of them are professionally produced, but they're not all that way. The difference is not in the tech that makes it effective. It is in the connections that you're able to engender through the way that you talk, through the way that you present. And that's why practice is so important. It doesn't have to be about the tech. If this is where you find yourself is focusing on tech, then I ask, are you willing to look at why that focus is on technology and not on other things? Are you using this as an excuse? Like I said, you wouldn't use it as an excuse, but this is something that I would encourage people to ask. Are you using this as an excuse to not create your course? Are you creating more of a barrier to your course creation than it needs to be? So I have a bunch of videos about like how to set up tech and, how to test and iterate. And I would encourage you to subscribe and like this channel so that you can get all of that wonderful course creation stuff. Okay, so moving on to number 4. Number 4 is what I'm calling a value cyclone. And this is where you are somebody who loves to create content. And so you want to create more and more and more value. You are creating and creating, but you're not creating your course because, well, you just love creating. Now, this focus on creating, just like the focus on tech, when you are not doing what leads to that course being done or that program being done, and instead you're just focusing on creating stuff, it could be a lot of things. It could be a lack of confidence and moving forward and doing those tasks that you don't like. But let's talk about personality. Okay, this is really common for me because I love creating content, and I get so distracted by really cool and good ideas. And so sometimes I have this reluctance to decide on, well, I used to, I don't now, but when you decide to create a course that covers these 3 things, whatever these 3 things are, and then you think of a 4th or 5th thing, it's like, am I happy with those first 3 things, or should I, change them out? Do I make it 4 things? This is really common. And one of the ways that helps me is recognizing, well, that 4th thing makes a great second course, or maybe it does belong in that, but you just make the decision and you move forward. But I just want to touch a little bit on the fact that you don't have to feel bad if this is your personality. I love the Myers-Briggs type indicator, and they have the 4 different dimensions that they use in there. But the last one, the one that is either a J, which is judging, or a P, that is perceiving, talks about 2 different types of ends of a spectrum in your comfort with making decisions. The people who are J, or heavier towards the J side, tend to be the kind that want to make those decisions. So it's super easy for them to say, nope, it's these 3 things, that's it. I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to look back. But if you're on the other end and you're in that perceiving, then you can sometimes get stuck in what people call analysis paralysis. I like to think of it as exploring possibilities. I am very much a perceiving, so I love to think about, well, this could happen and that could happen. And you tend to get stuck more when you think this course is my one course and I have to get everything right. But if you see this course as your first course instead, you can make better, it can help you make those better decisions and say, hey, I'm going to do these 3 things this course, and I can't wait to do my next course. I have a couple of ideas for that. Don't let the new ideas distract you, but at the same time, don't crush those new ideas either, because those are valuable content. So whether you are a judger and you make great decisions, that's great. Or if you're a perceiver and you have all these ideas and you hesitate to make decisions because you don't like to keep things closed, you like to keep things open, like me, that's great too. And you can shelve those ideas. Don't crush them. Just keep them aside and shelve them and put them away for now. Don't get distracted from what you're trying to do though. All right, so that is number 4. That is the value cyclone. You're just going to create a lot of stuff, or you want to follow cool ideas. So number 3 is the need to compete, where you feel like you have to compete. Like maybe you have this great course on creating an apple pie, and then you go and you see, Mrs. B has a great course on creating apple pie, and Joe has a great course on creating an apple pie. And you're like, I could never be like them. I can't create, like my apple pie looks very small and diminished compared to theirs now. But it's not only about the apple pie. So when Mrs. B or Joe are creating their courses about apple pie, their personality shines through. And in the same way, you have a unique and amazing personality that is unlike anybody's personality out there. So the more of you that shows up in your course, then the less duplicatable you can possibly be. No one can be you. You can't be Mrs. B, you can't be Joe, and that's great. So be you, and no one can compete with that. You are unduplicatable. So that is number 3, feeling the need of competing. All right, so number 2 is a lot like 3 and 4, but I'm making a separate category for it because it comes up so often and it creates problems in many different places in courses, and that is imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome shows up in a lot of different ways. It makes people doubt that who they are is even worthy of creating a course? Like, or nobody would want to listen to me. It shows up in indecisiveness with regards to making decisions about the course. It also shows up in like, I don't want to get up in front of people, and I don't want to connect with people, because if I do, they're going to see that I'm not the real deal, that I'm just pretending up here. And oh my goodness, this is such a difficult one to overcome. And it's not something that I can do in a short video. But I'm going to ask for anybody who has struggled with imposter syndrome to be willing to do things differently. Okay. I'm going to ask that you're willing to recognize that your beliefs about yourself may not be 100% accurate. Most people tend to be a little bit more critical of themselves than they are of others, unless, of course, they're defending their decisions and they're like, well, I had a bad day, so that's why I did this. Recognize that your beliefs about yourself may not be accurate. You might be too critical. You might not see yourself the way that God created you to be. And so, getting a right version of yourself can really, really help. Be willing to talk to somebody about your self-doubt. Go find somebody safe to talk to about that self-doubt. Don't talk to somebody who is not safe. If somebody is giving you a wrong type of feedback, if they're not gentle, if they're not caring, if they seem like they're not validating what you're saying, then go find somebody that you feel comfortable with, that you can talk to your self-doubt about. And then be willing to believe what others say about you, especially those people who know you best. When somebody knows you really, really well and they're saying things about you, it's not uncommon for people with imposter syndrome to say, well, they're just saying it to be nice, or they're just saying it because they know my feelings hurt right now. Maybe they're saying it because that's really, truly what they see in you. If they're spending time with you and they're great people, then they must see something in you that is amazing. Just like I believe that there's something in you amazing. I may not know you, but I know who created you, and I believe you're amazing. And then I want you to be willing to change your beliefs about yourself. So work with somebody you know, think about what you think about yourself, and then ask yourself if it's true, and be willing to change the way you think about yourself. My heart goes out to everyone who feels this way about themselves, and that's probably why I'm taking a little time with this, because this barrier can become such a limiting factor in you attaining confidence enough to share yourself with other people. And who you are and what you know can really make a difference for somebody else. So we don't have time for imposter syndrome, right? We need to address that at its root. So that's number 2, imposter syndrome. Number 1 is not making time for research or audience building. I had listed I don't have enough time, but the truth is that everybody has enough time. It is about making the time. This is definitely an issue. It is not an issue only with online course creation. It is an issue that I see everywhere. I see it in corporations. I see it, when I was working a retail store, people were like, well, I don't have time to train people. You have time to do it all yourself all the time. And unless you're willing to train people, then you're going to end up doing it all the time. This is really a huge issue around why training programs sometimes don't get delivered or delivered well. It is a huge issue why course creation fails, because people are not building the time in the research. And so they're making a lot of assumptions. And the more assumptions that they make, the more false assumptions they make, the more that course is going to fail. It's not going to work. Course creators generally fall into one of 2 categories. There is the content expert and the audience expert. Now, an audience expert might be a life coach or like a business coach, or someone who is working with a lot of relationships in their audience. And for those people, their research on the audience and their audience building is fine, and they can go ahead and create a course. They may have to do some research on the topic, but they don't have to do research on the audience because they already work with their audience, so they're not having to do it. So I am absolutely picking on those people who are content experts, because this is where I see the failing most of the time. They're content experts, say that they're an expert in zippers. They know everything there is to know about zippers, right? So they make their course completely about zippers. That course is absolutely great. It talks everything you need to know about the zippers. It's broken down into cognitive chunks. It works pretty great. The problem is you don't know your audience and you aren't building your audience. So you're talking about zippers, and the talking about zippers is flawless, but does it meet the needs of your audience? I don't know if you guys have ever read the book, and I'm going to probably slaughter this because I don't speak French, but Les Miserables. So in that book, and I decided one time to read the unabridged version of this book because I generally like the unabridged versions of the book. And this book is really amazing. The story is amazing. And lots of people have talked about this book. And I was blown away because I was expecting it to be like not so good. And it was really, really good. But there's a good chunk of that book that's talking about button making. And I don't know why the author went into button making. I'm guessing he knew buttons really well. So that's what he wanted to talk about. Everything you wanted to know about button making. Now, if you're like me and you're reading the book to go into the story, you want to find out about the story. You want to find out about the people, and you couldn't care a flip about a button. And so that abridged version, by the way, that's probably the one book that I've ever read that I'm like, get the abridged version because it's so much better. It doesn't have the buttons in it. And where are the buttons in your course? You know, if you're a content expert, where are you talking about a topic that means nothing, that is not relevant to your audience? You can't know if you're not actually doing that research. Another mistake that often happens when you skip the research and you're a content expert is that you end up talking down to your audience. And I'm positive that so many of these people do this because when they talk about their subject, they are that expert. So they walk into a room, they talk about that subject all the time, and they begin to see themselves as the smartest person in the room. And I'm so grateful for their genius and their smartness, right? But when they write the books or when they write their courses, they often use condescending language in it. That needs to go. I mean, it just absolutely needs to go. It is not going to create a great connection for your audience. So that by far, in my opinion, is the number one issue that I see in course creation. Somebody's an expert in whatever it is they're an expert in, whether it's zippers or buttons or apple pie, and then they want to make their course completely about the content. And by the way, there are some courses in which this works fine. If you are helping somebody do equations in a spreadsheet, and it's a simple course on how to do equations in a spreadsheet, you can make it completely about that content. That's fine. But if you want to make your course about anything that's transformational and where that connection really comes to play, or if you want your course to stand out among others because of the connection you make, then you got to make that connection. And in order to make the connection, you need to know the audience. So those are the 5 issues that I see: technology, creating tons of value without a clear purpose, feeling the need to compete, imposter syndrome, and skipping research. I hope this video has helped you. There are plenty more like it, so be sure to subscribe. Have a beautiful day.